You know, when it comes to humanity, scamming ain't new. Not at all. We've been doing it since almost the very start. Messing with people, taking their stuff, tricking them. Humanity is a virus. Anyway, but the question then remains, well, what's the oldest scam? The one that we know about anyway. I mean, after all, records in ancient civilizations are a bit more difficult to track since they didn't necessarily write everything down, or if they did, it's been long since destroyed due to the passages of time or war or whatever it may be. But we do have a few glimpses into historical scamming from way back when. And officially, the oldest financial scam anyway, dates back to around 300 BC, and a sea merchant named Hegestratos. Hegestratos had decided that it was a good idea to commit what was in effect insurance fraud. He took out a policy against both his ship and its cargo. They wouldn't have called it insurance back then, they called it a bottomery. Basically how this works is that the merchant borrows money on the basis that when the ship arrives at its destination with the cargo, which in this case happened to be corn, the loan is paid back with some interest. If the merchant doesn't pay the loan back, the boat and the cargo are repossessed. Obviously, the money is there in case something happens to the ship and the cargo. If they sink, then that's a different story. That's kind of how this worked. It's a weird way of handling insurance, obviously. That's how they did it at the time in ancient Greece. But Hegestratos wanted that money, and didn't care much about his ship. Or the cargo, for that matter. Well, he cared about the cargo. His plan was basically to sink the ship, which was empty, and then sell the corn on the side, claiming that the corn had been with the ship, and, as a result, keeping the loan. But he didn't actually tell his crew that he was planning on doing this. And when they caught him, well, they tried to stop him. He fled and jumped off the ship, drowning while trying to escape. So that didn't go so well for Hegestratos, obviously. Never did get to pull off the scam, and it's obviously not that long of a story, but there is a more interesting tale of a potential scammer from even longer ago. And I say potential because, okay, the internet has ran with this story for several years. It's become kind of a meme. However, there's no real evidence there's actually a scam going on here. All we have are a few customer complaints, which were sent to this dude on clay tablets. That's the only reason we have them, is because they were put on tablets. And those tablets tend to last longer than almost any other kind of record, since as long as they stay out of the weather, they can last millennia. And they did. And so we have the records, and can read them. And we can see, wow, these customers were really mad with this guy. Ea-nāṣir was his name. And he lived in the mid-18th century BCE, or 1800 BC. Whatever, that doesn't matter. The point is, it was a long time ago, nearly 4,000 years ago. And he lived in a city called or that, yes, in ancient Mesopotamia. So old is this story, that it's likely one of the oldest things I'll ever discuss on this channel. A few more thousand years beyond this, we'd be into prehistoric times. And we'd be talking about it on Prehistory in the Dark, which is my other channel that I upload to every Wednesday if you want to go check it out. And yes, that was an obnoxious segue into that. How did you know? Anyway, ancient Mesopotamia existed in what is present-day Iraq. And Ea-nāṣir was a member of the Alek Tilman, which was a guild of merchants based in Dilmun. Now, Ea-nāṣir seemed to specialize in copper, from what we know, and that makes sense. Copper was a pretty major commodity back then, still is now. But he's just a merchant, right? I mean, that sounds like a pretty normal person back then. Not really historically major in the grand scheme of things, and true, however, in 1953, a man by the name of Sir Leonard Woolley discovered a peculiar stone tablet, roughly the size of an old-school cell phone. It was brought back to the British Museum, because of course it was. Where'd you think it was gonna wind up? Come on now. And was designated object number 1953-0411.71. The object was pretty interesting, because it was a well-preserved tablet with legible writing. It was written in cuneiform, and when it was translated, it was discovered that this was in fact the oldest customer complaint that we actually have. Indeed, it was sent to Ea-nāṣir from one of his customers of his copper ingots, named Nani. Nani was pretty steamed at Ea-nāṣir because Ea-nāṣir had given him very low-quality copper ingots. I shall read to you the entire length of the tablet in English, because I can't read cuneiform at all, or ancient Mesopotamian whatsoever, so we're going to read this in the translated form. Tell Ea-nāṣir, Nani sends the following message. When you came, you said to me as follows, I will give Gimel Sin, when he comes, fine quality copper ingots. You left then, but you did not do what you promised me. You put ingots, which were not good, before my messenger, Sit Sin, and said, if you want to take them, take them. If you do not want to take them, go away. What do you take me for, that you treat somebody like me with such contempt? I have sent as messengers gentlemen like ourselves to collect the bag with my money deposited with you, but you have treated me with contempt by sending them back to me empty-handed several times, and that through enemy territory. Is there anyone among the merchants who trade with Telmun who has treated me in this way? You alone treat my messenger with contempt. On account of that one trifling mina of silver which I owe you, you feel free to speak in such a way, while I have given to the palace on your behalf 1,080 pounds of copper, and Umiabum has likewise given 1,080 pounds of copper, apart from what we have had written on a sealed tablet to be kept in the temple of Samas. How have you treated me for that copper? You have withheld my money bag from me in enemy territory. It is now up to you to restore my money to me in full. Take cognizance that, from now on, I will not accept here any copper from you that is not of fine quality. I shall, from now on, select and take the ingots individually in my own yard, and I shall exercise against you my right of rejection because you have treated me with contempt. So clearly, it's obvious that Nani was pretty steamed that Ea-nāṣir had given him low-quality copper in exchange for his money. And that was how social media ran with it for the last several years. However, a closer inspection reveals that Ea-nāṣir may not actually be the bad guy in this situation. See, based off of Nani's own tablet, he readily admits that he hasn't paid Ea-nāṣir in full for the copper that he asked for, meaning that he sent those messengers to retrieve all the copper, but without actually bringing him the rest of the money. He only put a deposit down. Ea-nāṣir, as a result, gave him low-quality copper, since he wasn't paying him the money he was actually owed. But Nani proceeded to act like a complete Karen about this, and bring out his hammer and chisel, and send Ea-nāṣir a sternly worded tablet. There were some other tablets found within Ea-nāṣir's dwelling. One was a man who complained about not receiving his copper yet, and another one said he was tired of receiving bad copper. So maybe Ea-nāṣir was a bit unscrupulous, it's possible, but also Nani hadn't actually paid him properly. And in case you're thinking of signing with Nani though, because, oh, that's low quality copper, understand that that trifling mina of silver that he still owes, that's not trifling. At all. A mina of silver is a lot of friggin' silver. For a mina of silver, you could have bought about, 6 slaves. Yeah, you could have done that. Or it was also worth about 60 months of skilled labor in salary form. It was a lot of silver. This was not trifling. That was a lot of money. Ea-nāṣir also made no attempt to conceal the fact that this was low-grade copper, implying that this was more of a transaction of convenience, like, here, take this crap if you want it that bad, because Nani wouldn't leave him alone. It's also been argued that he didn't keep these tablets out of pettiness or because they humored him. No, it's because ancient Mesopotamia had a pretty developed court system, especially by ancient standards, and those tablets would have been, like, evidence to use in the event of an ancient lawsuit. So he may have just been being a good businessman by keeping those around just in case. Nani was basically demanding that Ea-nāṣir give him really good quality copper without actually giving him the proper amount of money for good quality copper. And that would not have been fair. This was This was a peak Karen demand situation. I am of the opinion that Nani was actually the bad guy in this particular exchange, and Ea-nāṣir was just looking out for his business. Because let's be realistic about this, even in the modern days, you could run a business perfectly and still not actually make everybody happy. You're still gonna get customer complaints all the time. And ancient Mesopotamia was obviously no exception, and he only had 3 that we know of. Granted, plenty of others would have likely been destroyed over time, or maybe he didn't keep all of them, but he can't have been the only merchant receiving complaints. Because in some ways, people really haven't changed all that much, you know? That's one of those deals. And for this reason, Ea-nāṣir is not considered one of the oldest scammers officially, because, frankly, there's too much about the exchange that we just don't know. We don't know how their interaction was up until this point. We don't know why Nani is being so demanding about this copper, why he wants it now, but we do know that he hasn't fully paid Ea-nāṣir, and that Ea-nāṣir was a member of a pretty prominent merchants guild, who likely wouldn't have wanted a scammer in their midst, since it makes the whole guild look bad. But given that Nani considers the amount of money trifling when it absolutely is not a trifling amount of silver at all, I'm gonna side with Ea-nāṣir on this one. I feel like Nani's being completely unreasonable. And it makes you wonder how the situation wound up. Was it eventually resolved? Who knows? There's no records of that we've found so far. Because ancient Mesopotamia, well, it's 4,000 years ago. There's a lot of stuff we don't know about. But yeah, that was a thing that happened. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fun farewell.